Minto bwakire, how is everybody doing? Onye koroma geniga, gokonyora lituko litangani, esi lituko litangani. Go ahead, like my page. Onye koroma genia se group, genda iguralia, ligelia machiko, ntobwata machiko ye group. Wenete kubwati, binto wente ku post. Ekero ku post, post chikoba approved by admins, ntobwata working admins. So onye wokobeke post take time umanyanga ngochere kwa approved because they have to screen chi post. Asinge nchondo bwate standards togotumia chia Facebook ero seti ekuchikoro ku community Facebook community standards that we have to follow. Yeke rokobeke post yotari konyerora manyayigo ngatemite chi criteria chia Facebook. Facebook is an organization, ebwate rules and regulations, and we have to follow those rules, yeah? Igakero kucha kwabike ngento kwamanya konyoranga ngento keyo togo kanga ni chi admin chiko receive into kerensa inza chinde Facebook ko receive into because they are trying to keep Facebook as a good space asabantu bako levia sara asabantu bako encourage one another asabantu bako nyora therapy asabantu bako nyora connection asabantu bako nyora emirimo. There are so many things happening on Facebook nabatebeti abantu bali mobwate chi page go se more comedians go se mobwate biasara. You can monetize your page oros chibese kurwa se chi video chia okorosia go se kurwa se ko nye binto genda se business center ya Facebook ligere what opportunities are there and use take advantage of those opportunities. So leronte teko kwanele igoro ya my mother, and I want to talk about this because narore a post gete kwenye go float igaiga in Facebook where abantu bagoteba mna nga otakonye tato mino ngo chali gukuragereri tato mino na bagukuragereria yes depending on ingento kyoga kolete yeah tukwanira abantu baito bona bagusitoche what is happening even right now. A lot of men are missing fathers ikinigento kialinge korukare. A lot of men are missing fathers bono konyora kera bana ba kiniro mongina akiniri abana bweka abasacha abamanye kuroro bachaka go surface. Haya ingi kogera rero nateto kwanira igoro ya my mother. This story is very personal. Nimbwate siblings as a group nimbwata abairi as a group nimbwata abana chikazi ni chikamati as a kyombeke. Lakini ntaitente byabantu ase bali mwanchite gwaka chisimi na konya kurangiria abantu nga penino tebire nyalebo tebire ntagete murangiria abantu mumanyete nga tindo chiboko ngubonde bwensi washe story yane kerere yane nando buguma n'ubwane igo moko ondoka mono nga gakyo tangasire family nga kyakora iga okwanira mangana mabe inchende responsible asipeni na kurunyando chebere na rwitegesima nga champa kanga iga bona sengo kwana lero Facebook mobasa kondoka mobasa koyunga nane kire family nga kende ngo chakoba kere kende nkeyo gekoba. Lakini mbuya to kwana asabanta abale young people bono bagukini abana. I want to speak about my mother. My mother is the reason ngikaranstega iga ngokwana. My mother is the reason in the bunande I watched my mother live a miserable life. At the time it looked miserable. Kero litwali go kina igona arochenga twa chandegete sana. It was very painful to see I used to see my mother cry. So in short, my father had 4 wives. My mother was the wife number 3. My mother had 8 children. Okay? She came in when there was already wife number 1. She came in as wife number 2. And then my father added another wife. So my father had 4 wives. Anybody who could be polygamous family. No takako tebi ondibwensi story mna ya tato mina lenge fair. It has never been a fair story when it comes to a polygamous family. And for some reason, I used to feel like my mom did not get the good share. That's how I felt. And that's why it is my story. Because my mom was very polite. She didn't say much. And every time my father came home, he just said whatever he had to say and he left. By the time he got the number 18, tata 21. By the time ngo kina, enanyorete tata amenyete bosongo mama amenyete eskim tata aligocha on Sunday once a week. Nande kera aligocha igare gocha with authority. Acheki ibintu bya mugondo, acheki ibintu bya mbiyebire, I never saw my father. I never saw my father even one day come home that Sunday in peace. Never. Even one day. And just to even send a friendly reminder, I loved my father. And I'm not saying he was not a loving father. But there was a difference that I noted. There was a difference between a father and a husband. As a husband, by the time Ngokina, Tata was very hostile to my mother. And I watched my mother cry every Sunday. And every Sunday was just another day that my father was coming. And every time he came, he raised hell. I saw my father rule with the iron fist. Okay? And he would say whatever he has to say and he leaves. I watched my mother go through life with a lot of pain. She would cry. She would just keep telling us, and she would wake up at 5, Yani she was constantly working. And I promised myself at a very young age, I will never be my mother. There is no way na mama. First of all, I wasn't going to marry a second wife. And I'd ask her, why did she marry as a second wife? She thought that was the life. The injustices that come as megale. Yeah? My God, what is happening? And then to add injuries, my brothers came to America in 1978. I said I was going to personalize the story so you know where I'm coming from and why I want to speak to men today, because there's a difference between being a father who provides and being a husband. There is that thin line. And it pains me today to see children of single parents making it so difficult for their mothers. My mother was not a single mom. But by the time Ngokina, my mother's life was the hardest life ever you can imagine. So, how it is, usually abasacha bange, bakwenda bachikobere nyumbenke. So my father was living in town with my stepmother. The one thing that hurt me as a child, I didn't understand why my father lived with my stepmother and the children in town while tomenyete nyando chibiri toko kolemeremo. That is a scar that I had to deal with, that occasionally that hurts. Inki abana bali bande bali gukora busongo, that is personal. Inki intu tokokora mugondo, that is personal. Inki akonya kuomanira mama, that is personal. This is a personal story. And it's a very painful story. I don't have a problem sharing the story because it is going to be in books. My grandkids have to know my story. They have to understand what was the drive for me to be where I am today. And when I talk about success, I feel successful. I'm not a failure. What is success? Success is when you get to a point where otaligo saberera mamo mino chibese, otaligo saberera tato mino chibese, toligo saberera bana ba mino bese, tindigo saba musacho no bese. Financial success, because at the time my father was a good provider. Lakini culturally at that time, the way the relationship was going, it didn't look good. But guess what? It was not bad. Because you know what? At that time, that's how things were. And those challenges left scars as abana bange sana. Kuligeli abana ba minu bali bosongo, bamenyete bosongo. In fact, batali ko chimogondo, my God, it is the most painful thing. And when I remember it, my heart drops. Nkiba aliko kora bosongo. Intungi toko kora nyando chebire toko tole chai. Why did my dad feel the need for us to be here while the other children were there living the best life, according to me? Okay? And we continue to live this life. Yaba sacha, bako nyoma bakungu, bamenya kuroro ba rosi abana abange. So I did not get a chance. I used to question my dad here and there. Why are they so upset? I even have letters I wrote to him. I'm asking him, Dad, onye wanjete mama, inkyugunya kuomanira. I didn't understand. I have the letters in my binder. Because tata alikobeka maruba, alitu alikomolikira. Maruba ane noari. like around class 6, 7, I was questioning why he was such a bad husband, but a good father. He loved his children. But then he would tell me that's all he knows. So in 1997, I had a chance to bring my father here as an adult after I became a mother. And I questioned him. I asked him a lot of questions. I said, Dad, why marry so many women? Why have so many children? Why were you always mean to my mother? And my father had an opportunity to answer me those questions one by one. And when I was done, I realized it was culture, conflict, and what we were seeing in modern times. I was seeing as like we are suffering, but at the time, marrying your wife was normal. But guess what? The other children were hurting. They are wondering, because I mean, it was a good life living in town. Let me put it that way. I did not like that life. But looking at my mother, I reminded myself that I will never be my mother. I would never suffer the way my mother was suffering. And men, I'm telling you, there is more than just providing money for your children. There is more than just paying bills. When you marry these women who bear children for you, ekero bana bao bakuligere mamu abakolera orara olera oboka olera, yani mama alikolera every other time there was something. How do you heal this trauma? Family is stable. How do you heal the psychological damage? The good thing mama. So it was a good thing. How do you expect in scars? Some of these homes the children are coming from, the men are good fathers, but they are bad husbands because they are mistreating their wives. And guess what? According to them, this is culture. They are left with a lot of pain. The attitude towards marriage, what they think a marriage is supposed to be, the culture, how they were taught. Tata rule with an iron fist. You want to tell me that's how you're going to live every day? You have to choose how you're relating to your spouse. And guess what? What shocks me, the reason I chose to be personal today, that I see men again today behaving like my father. My father was born in 1926. Every day. I see men making children and walking away. And guess what? My father was very responsible of his children. He paid all the bills. We went to school. School fees. And I get an error. You understand? Lakini relationship it was not there. And it is the drive. It was the drive for most of my mother's children because we all agreed we are suffering here. We were not having a good time. Abana bandi bakalebo songo, abana bo mongino manene basomere bakolire bono into abana babake igotoroche hell. We didn't look like we were priority. We didn't feel like tata nato begete priority. Lakini at that time the culture looked like nato begete. He didn't know any better. Mwaro cho musacho video ego circulate Facebook. Umusacha ago ito mwana atabwatia mavera. Egasi ya tata was to remind my mother n'abana babo baguca baba hivi. Abana babo baguca konyoru para abaitwe. Yani I never had a positive reinforcement. Tata's positive reinforcement was negative. At the time, I didn't feel like he cared. I mean, like he said all kinds of things. But guess what? Back then, it was a way to motivate children to do better. But then again, I'm going to dwell on that issue because a lot of men, once they bring the second wife, the third wife, they forget about those children from the other mother. Those children were born the same way you are giving birth. A question that up to today my father died that I would never understand. Inki toko tutariko enderere kitole miaka ya mana abana na intutomenyo boguma bobuyekaine. It is a never fair game because I didn't feel like we were priority. The family was big. A lot of things are happening. There is emotional distress. There is emotional abuse. There is verbal abuse. You go to live with your stepmother. Oko ramote. Yani, what was that? Every day okuboka okumitinga lero nga kingo cha kuboka. Lero nga kingo cha kokoro. Koko chikusaba chibesa kwao mani. That is the time we grew up. It was chaos every day. There was no happy moment. No any Christmas kegocha na chaos. And guess what? And that's why I warned you and siblings. I am speaking from my own eyes, my observation. Now I don't owe anybody an apology of what I'm saying. I don't need to tell anybody anything. Why did I say what I said? No. From my own eye, my naked eye, it looked like we were abused. But guess what? Later, tata wantenga umwanone. Because you know what? I decided after I came to America. After na igetega shortly, after starting to understand what it meant to be a grown-up, what it meant to be an adult, I decided to forgive my father. I decided to educate myself about forgiveness, and I decided that, you know what, I am going to see the life through my father's eye to tell me that, you know what, tata alikuondoka lieta liringa kibono lieke gusi mother-in-law, my God, Makobiara. My name was Makobiara. I decided to see life from my father's eye. I said, I have to forgive my father. Even to be honest, injustice, she dropped. That's how come I started having a conversation with him. What was all that? And I got peace. And then after that, I committed myself that I'm going to succeed to make my mother proud. I am going to make sure I give my mother the best. I am going to make sure that mom is going to be happy moving forward. And at the same time, I was going to make sure I make my father proud. Besides what I saw and all the unfairness that I saw that was going on, it was very painful to just watch injustices. Abana muru muchoyo muroche injustices muligereti mutabwati say. I decided to forgive my father and we started talking and having a good conversation. And I said, you know what I can do? I cannot change the past, but I can change the future. Which is the future now that I have changed. And I talk on Facebook. And I come here today to tell the men, you just don't become a father and you feel entitled. And you think now that the fact that you had children with the so-and-so, that you are going to be taken care of. Every father at one time is going to need the children. Out of the 21 children, I don't know how many of my father's children were Muaverete for marrying so many women anyway. Yeah? Abandi maybe mbai wetkende, abandi nabaru ba nyomira bakungu abange, abandi nabaru bono ba sokire maramange, abandi nabaru ba nyolira bana abange, nenche nimbwata abana bane. My children are already questioning why I have 4 children. Because they feel abana bane na abange. I decided to forgive my father and have faith that I can have a better life. So I could have a light heart. And then another thing I decided to have relationships with my stepbrothers and sisters very, very willing. The rest, I don't care. I don't even want to look at them. I don't know if we are going to go to hell together or we are going to go to heaven together. There are some of my step-siblings and siblings I don't want to see. And I'm not looking forward to see them. I'm only going to invest in relationships after tuarule eseye yaba kungu banena ba not 21. I'm only going to invest my energy in a relationship of my brother or my sister who has forgiven the past, who has moved on, who has put the wounds behind, because they are wounds of polygamous families. The wounds that are so painful that you can never explain. It hurts so much. You are sharing a father and you see your mother going through hell. I decided to pick the good relationships chiri tokoigwana abantu bali tokoigwana abana bali bamintu tokoigwana. And I decided to be generous. I decided to be a generous person because I'm sharing the ideas. I'm sharing my story. I am actually generous to tell you my true story. As painful as it is, I share it. I retained the values that my father instilled in me to work hard, to want the best for me. And I understood that negative reinforcement was the way children were supposed to succeed, which is unlike today. Squeeze to gote mwana ngo chakobo moivi omo motivate. Squeeze to waka mwana ibiboko moteving you are going to be better. Squeeze to gote mwana ngo chakoba chokora. Nowadays you cannot use negative reinforcement for children to succeed. You tell a child you're going to be a useless person, they become useless. I understood that, you know what, those values that my father was trying to instill in me using negative reinforcement were supposed to motivate me to be a better person. He would say, Onya tuta itu chukuburugere chai. Onya tuta itu kotole chai. Onya tuta itu ko ire chombe tibu. Onya tuta itu ko ende tinga. Onya tuta itu ko tara na maguru. Oikokoro mokia. I decided that, you know what, moving forward, let me use it so I don't have to be a beggar. I don't have to be spoken with. My husband doesn't have to talk to me the way my father used to talk to my mother. I can have a healthy relationship. No more. I don't have to yell. He doesn't have to yell. And then I decided that I need to be better than my father. I need to step it up. I need to step it up than my mother. I need to step it up than my older siblings because I had seen them go through all these challenges. I decided Amarua is not an option for me because Konywa Marugo Tinda is the number one like home killers. I said I'm going to grow. I said, you know what, Mama, I'm going to be motivated by you. And I lived with my mom for 20 plus years. Looking at my mother, how quiet she was, how humble she was, how compromised she was. She motivated me to stay positive. And I decided to live in truth. I do live in truth. My truth hurts. Most people don't want to hear things I say. I live in truth because I'm not answerable to anybody. I'm not afraid of my father. He's dead. I'm not afraid of my mother. She's older now. I'm not afraid of my siblings. They are living their life. I'm not afraid of my husband because, you know what, he met me at an older age and I had a mindset of how I wanted my life to be. So I let him know how this is how I wanted my life. I'm not afraid to tell the truth. Nobody's going to kill me for my truth because you know what? It is a choice. I decided I'm going to respect myself and not waste myself. I decided umuberone tiganyerende elinde nyalego kini abana bane. Tinta itikwa abuse umuberone. Tinta itikwe gochaka kobeke ibintu bire toxic ya so bongo bwane wetera sabantu be family wetera basani wetera Facebook. Tinta itikobeka toxicity in my mind because you know what? Toxicity na berete bungwenyi for 20 years was enough. What I saw, and I was born when like life was not even pretty, let me tell you. I had enough of that for 18 years. That was enough. I respect myself enough not to allow junk to go in my head. I respect myself enough not to subscribe to anybody who has negative comments about me. There's nothing you're going to come here and tell me that is going to derail me. Nyando Chebere, for 18 years, that life was enough. My mother crying was enough. My mother waking up at 4, 5 a.m. to go look for food, my body so stressful, was enough. I don't have to entertain anybody. So I respect myself. In the process, I create boundaries. In fact, very strong. Very strong. You cannot penetrate through this heart. You cannot penetrate through my children. You are not penetrating through my husband. You are not penetrating through anybody else. If you want to deal with me, go through God. Because God is the only one who knows what I saw growing up. What I wanted growing up. And I take risks like this one. Like speaking about my family on Facebook. It is a choice. It is a risk I take. Are the siblings going to like it? Probably not. Are some of the cousins, relatives of those people going to like it? Probably not. Do I care? Not at all. I take risks. And above all, I create balance. I create balance where I know I'm talking to you about this thing and I'm still struggling. There is a balance there. I am not fully successful. Now I'm raising adult children. The children are giving me a headache, just the same way I gave my parents a headache. When I talk about a headache, what does a headache mean? A headache means when the children turn 18, they are no longer your children. The world is waiting for them. What are those values you're instilling on your children? What is the attitude? What is the destination have you set for your children? Because when they turn 18, they are choosing their own path. Do you need to lack sleep over your adult children? If you give them a good foundation, you should never lack sleep. My father used to tell us, he reminded us that he'll be dead, and he is sure dead. Okay? Are you teaching your children to adjust with the change when things go wrong? How are they dealing with change? Are you telling them to focus on what they want out of their life? Bossy, how are you doing? Why would my mother be crying every day? Yeah? You have to forgive those parents. I'm thinking, why didn't she just pick up and go? She could not run. Are you teaching your children to have priorities? Are you teaching your children to eat well? To eat well and balance the diet? Are you teaching your children to have family inclusion, to know their aunties, their uncles? Are you teaching your children about family? Are you teaching your children about commitment? What it means to commit to yourself, to say that, you know what, moving forward, this is what I will do. Besides all the storms of my father and my mother, my father was a great father. He paid for everything, absolutely everything. He was a provider, and he gave us the wisdom and knowledge that I have today. I have to credit him. He used to sit down and talk to us and tell us exactly what we need to do. When HIV came, he came and told us HIV is here. When alcohol started becoming a problem, he said alcoholism is a problem. When people started dropping out of school, he started telling us, oh, you cannot just drop out of school. Are you teaching your children to manage money? My father taught us to manage money. Are you teaching those children? As much as he had this big family, he used to sit down and go through the finances. He made sure that all his children were provided for. He was not biased when it came to children's education and what they needed to know. This information, these meetings, those children that he used to have in town there, he used to bring them when he has that big meeting. At least he brought them for the meeting. When he had the big family meeting, those children came and then he took them back to town. Then as we just sit there and wonder like, Obe, we just left here. Are you teaching your children to have faith that one day things will be okay? Are you teaching your children to be generous, to give to other people? He educated all the cousins that were willing to go to school. Are you willing to teach your children to be generous, to give somebody a hand? 200 things. What are those values? What are the traditions that you're teaching your children? Every Christmas inki mogokora, Thanksgiving inki mogokora. Holidays kyo otigeta mokungu oli ondo karangilia abana bawo bonsi okababeka amo. Kire sukukuya ikire tata ali kubeka abana baye bonsi amo. Sky, they don't want to speak the truth. Me, I'm speaking the truth because I came from a father who was an open book. My father used to say these things openly. The men are not doing a good job. What are those things you create for your children? Go say go busy no mokungu onde wachire ko yiri mokungu onde bano okuna meto mokungu oli no onde to nyoleti abana babande binanga kibago chakoba. What are those traditions? And then later you're going to look back and say mokungu yoga ireta abana baya akabagenka. And I had that discussion with my dad. He told me his exact words. Makobiara he's telling me America we used to take walks in the evening. Amangana aliyo bugumaboli tu amenyere tali nyando chibiri tato bugumaboli no bovesana na ande nkamwakira rende mbiyamona nangaki aerende alisingo somi kwalenga abana tata to basa ko yugobobe na ande no nyenche bintu biri nale korra nambu bekwale gokora na kwabire because ebinde mbo bekwale gokora lakini tata mbiye wanje tamasomo bonorora na America tole mungina te yoko ira bana baya chake ko bate mbaro ba gokora lakini mama ta gutuire nse mata te inga chaya iso ngabono mo basa kokonya iso. No, it does not happen like that. The men I'm speaking today to you, ninu mwagira narete topic ye. The women are there putting up with everything. The women are there raising the children by themselves. When it's all said and done, the children grow. Na andi mukanga bana mbarochi tikako ngacha bakungu ngana bako genka bana babange. Men are hiding from reality. Yes, my father was a great father. Besides him having many wives, he made sure that all the children went to school. He made sure that he gave us the same advice yako nganera kwa mwana w'umukungu onde. Abandi bano mwibisete chinyomba chinke mwatigira abakungu banena abana bagusira. Mwatigira abakungu abanena abana discipline imoyo. Umwagite nyombe ndimo enyombe nke mororo sana. My father never did that. He gave the same advice abana ba Evans 21. He was giving the same minutes. He used to write minutes. Tata did not discriminate. Ngachkobera mumo kungo nino agetoro sana. Men, I'm challenging you in memory of my father. Step up. There's a difference between being a wife, a husband, and a father and a mother. Even they vary. Step up to your responsibility. Na wako nyoro mwana no monto otatageti, which is fine. Na wako nyora only in a polygamous family otatageti, it's okay. But the lesson I learned from my father, and the lesson I shared this story today, as painful as I thought things were, as bad as I felt my father was, I came later to realize that my father was a very fair father. He made sure he was there for his children. The reason why he married, he said, the more money you got, the more wives you added. What was the problem? Because you know what? He didn't see a problem. Lakini abasacha abaskuizi bako nyoma bakungu bamenye gwakoro sana batigero bakungu abana bonspi abana bago succeed kwamenye gochaka otenga nkoragereri muri abana inki ukoragereri abana onye turwiti no ine school fees inki ukoragereri abana turi kwenda no ine ndegoli no ogendorora abana assistant ende gwatigeta abana lakini nobwate chibeso kuli ine ndego chikonyoma umukungu onde Kenya. Nobati chibeso gutumira umukungu onde Kenya kwa murangiri every morning. Nobati chibeso kwenda Kenya ira abana bo mukungu oli onde Mombasa lakini iga abana bali otigete iga mbanya korora no nye Mombasa. Abana bande bayibuliri iga America mbanya kwenda Kenya no ne bamanye nanga Kenya kororekana. Lakini abana bali Kenya barabu okuba ire chi vacation. Abasacha, listen to me carefully. You will pay. I was among my father's children who forgave my father. And I forgave my father because we sat down and we talked. Because I realized he wasn't as abusive as I thought he was. It was a culture. But guess what? The children today are not as forgiving as our time. Your children are not going to forgive you for being an absent father. Your children are not going to forgive you for allowing their mother to cry. Your children are going to put you in a nursing home and they'll never see you again. Men, stop hiding from raising your children. Step up and raise your children. No, no, 100 shillings. No, 20 shillings. Call Moyo, step up and raise your children. Be like the late Mzee Ongwenyi. My father was a polygamous, fair father. He was not a good husband. Don't get that twisted to me. But him, he told me he was a good husband to his wives. Why? He loved them how he knew how. Lakini me as a child, unfair. Men, abana batubwate are not going to be like us. They are not going to forgive you the way we've forgiven our parents. They will never forgive you. Step up and take care of your children. They will never. In fact, you're going to suffer. They will not even feed you. They will not even come to see you. Make time. No nyomo mokungo lekien. No nyomo mokungo mayete gokomena. Ogokomena buya. Separate those two things. Even if you meet the most beautiful young wife, don't mix your children and your wife issues. Be there for your children. And the generation that is coming is going to be worse than abanaba in the 70s. Abanaba in the 60s. Okay? Life is tough out here. Be that father. No, I'm very intentional. My friend, you need to make time with abanaba. You need to make time with abana manene ndagere baragere. Otherwise, abana nguchaka okwanga bali. ingo matainga genda ira abana abo bakorere gento ayo bwanchani bwa utali obole busaigo obwanchani bwa fathers it is action okolera abana ebintu that's the only way abana bakonyora obwanchani bwa ise tali ngase ngencho kwa rwete spam ngabono naye isa abana it doesn't work like that abana obwanchani bwa ise bogocha through action rine ndege genda iro umwana umutali umuira asegete umuira ni asengina. You don't have to be with the mother. You don't have to like the mother. But be that present father. Be like Mzee Ongwenyu, who did not care how his relationships were going with his wives. I don't even care if he cared. But he loved his children. And he made sure that he gave all of us equal opportunities. Onye watete kwenda Bohindi, we went. Watete go to America, we went. Anybody who wanted to go to anything, to school, to study, he paid for you to go to school. It didn't matter who your mother was. It didn't matter if your mother behaved or not. He gave us all equal opportunities to grow. And success is when you are able to be self-sufficient. Otaligo saba onde kende, owakane nyumba yao, okorageli abana bao, okoira abana bayo skuru. Arwana ekatu. Yeah? Oko wara chianga, nabona na chiete itali ngotiringa chibes chiane, eating my own money. That is success to me. Tindi go saba onde bwensi chibes na alikuwa enda tata ngalero, mama ga kinga, no. After I turned 18, that was the end of the story. That is success. Success nekero taligo sabonde bwensi chibes. Abana ba ko successful nekero ba ucha ko self-sufficient. Bataligo sabonde chibes. Na ande bayinyuli ko batebina ngaki success nekero taligo cha sabonde bwensi chibes. Okweragira ibieka turi kunya kwenda ngabaki ngamusubati uminto karanga fees, musubati uminto karanga turi kunya gosaberera. And don't be ashamed go soba chake ko iwenchera getenga nga kwamenyiro bogumenchera getenga sengencha abana bamusubati umino batarasoma abana bamumuro mino barasoma. That is the choices they made. You had the same father, you had the same mother. If your mother was crying tears, everybody saw the tears. If your mama mino nkoma ni walenge no muri monsi moko na koma ni onye mama mino nkobuka 4am no muri nyombe ya kubukira 4am onye mama mino no arakorara atali esibi because yorosire no muri nyombe you. Enyombe ino omuli mwe speaker mama mina ko nyakolera enyombe ino omuli mwe speaker tatu mina ko nyakuomana bono motete gwekona ekero umuntu ndere iri niro tebire ngaki inchetingo cha komenya bugi mobo mumenya gotenga bono chibesa gotiringa abana bamwe bono mbali. And that gives me the last discussion that I want to talk about abana chintakana. I am very passionate about abana chintakana. Why? Abana bambabu atise mbabu atingina. And it's the next fund drive we are going to do in the next few weeks. We are starting a fund drive. Ya abana chintakana. Abana batabu atiso obwata bakungu abange, abana batabu atingi no kolera. Mama uchi ali kolera ka motivate. Abande mbabu atingi na barara no mongi no kolera aba motivate. What is going to motivate you ntakana? Isetayo ngina tayo. Inakoro kule. Abana chintakana. That is who I'm passionate about. Telling abana ngaba my brother, ngaba my sister, ngaba my cousin, I am not worried about those children. Bali ngina na isebale moyo. I am passionate about abana chintakana. And I'm kicking off a fund drive that we need to carry for Kayo Mwana Rindasi. Asa abana chintakana. Tali abana babugata abayibuli bagotaya ya iska. Tali abana babugata abayibuli abangina bakunywa maruska bakonya kobeka chi makeup abandi bakonya kobeka chi fake eyelashes. Abandi bako olebinto gocha. Tali abana bali babugata abayibuli bana kireki na batatage ubeka enyonga nse balenda abana. Tali balia. Tali abasacha bali bako enda banya gwetana na Kenya bako enda bachikuliya abakungu bande no. Abana chintakana. Abana chintakana is who I'm passionate about. And you know what? Abana bachintakana, we are going to work together so we can provide for them. So I'm putting up a challenge, yeah? I'm starting tomorrow. I'm going to create a group. I'm bringing it out there. And we are going to start raising money. You can donate from around the world. Tokonya abana chintakana. I am putting 100,000 shillings, which is $1,000 of my money, the upcoming week. Alafu chidona chinde mumbwati. To abana chintakane Christmas. We want to light up abana chintakana's Christmas. Vina tata aliko toretera Christmas. My father used to bring Christmas every year. Every year was wamandasi chabati yani I had a beautiful Christmas every year by the way. Chianga nkole rituale. Oma tekale na hotenga na kaite tuwa chandekete lakini tuwa chandekete. So in memory of my father, in this Christmas, because ye tata moyale, I could have been spending more money than I'm spending. I'm putting up $1,000 and we are starting the campaign Yoko Mwana Rindasi. So that way we can remind fathers that you fathers, we need to step up. If it was not my father who stepped up, angatindi gaiga. Yeah? And you have to learn to forgive those parents before they die. Because after they die, you'll never get them to reconcile with them. Forgive them. Because even us now, our children are blaming us for some things that we are doing. Because you know why? It is culture and tradition. We are doing those things not because we want. We are doing those things because that's who we are. We are from Nyando Chebere. We are not Americans. So we can only give our children what we know. And that's what's going to happen. Fathers, this video was for you. Step up and take care of your children this Christmas. Meanwhile, I'm creating the group ya Kayomwana Rindasi, and we are kicking it off from tomorrow. You are going to donate whatever you can.